Alright folks, saving money on camera gear is definitely something we all want to do.
Okay.
But if you're in the market for a new gimbal, but you can't figure out which one you should buy, and you do not want to be throwing cash out the window, let me share with you 3 things I wish I knew before I bought my first gimbal. Because the last thing you want to do is to waste a lot of money on the wrong one. So first off, we have to take a look at what kind of camera we are planning on putting on the gimbal. If we, for instance, are shooting on a smaller DSLR or mirrorless camera like the S5 here, not super heavy, nice and compact, I would look at something like the Gimbal S, because the Gimbal S is a nice compact gimbal, doesn't weigh anything, has all the good features. Even though this gimbal is a couple of years old, I still highly recommend this gimbal. But if you're shooting on a bigger camera like the S1H right here, this camera is heavier, it has a bigger body, and you need more real estate to put it on this gimbal. And the motors are not beefy enough, it doesn't have enough power to be able to counterweight something like this. You will have to look for a bigger gimbal. For instance, the DJI RS3, it's a great gimbal, it has all the new features, it's upright, it has big motors, it can easily take something like this. Or you could also go with the DJI RS2 or one of the bigger Shuin gimbals. To give you a better visual understanding of what gimbal fits what camera, I've made this chart you can use as a guideline. It's divided into 4 categories: hobby, creator, filmmaker, and cinema. And here you can see what camera matches those categories, and you can easily find the gimbal that matches. So if you're shooting on a Panasonic S5 or a Sony a7 S3, you're in the category of a creator, and the gimbal you should be looking at is something like the Gimbal S or the DJI RSC2. But if you're using the big boys toys and you're filming cinema stuff, you're probably shooting on something like the Red Raptor or Sony FX9, and the gimbal you should be looking at is either a Movi Pro or a DJI Ronin 2. But just always keep in mind that your camera has to fit the gimbal that you're using. So don't put an iPhone on a DJI RS3 because they simply don't match up. Do we have to buy a new gimbal, or could we buy a used one and save some money? But if you are buying a used one, there's some things you need to take into consideration before you're just sending your cash off.
Uh-oh. Can't make the scene if you don't have the green.
Because we do not know anything about this gimbal. We do not know how much it's been used. We don't know if it's been dropped. We have to trust the seller on this one. So go into details with the research, see if you can look the seller up online. Do they have an Instagram account or a web page where you can see that they've used this gimbal? And then ask some of these questions. When was the gimbal bought? Do they have the receipt? And then, if you can, test the gimbal on site with your own camera on it. And then lastly, don't just pay the asking price. Give them a really good offer, because
this is unbelievable.
I told you.
They are likely to take that offer because they really want to sell this gimbal. But on the other hand, if we buy a new gimbal, we know that it comes straight from the factory. No one has used this gimbal before, and it has warranty with it. So there are, of course, pros and cons on doing both of these. But if we go over here and take a look at the Crane 3 Lab, which is a gimbal that I just recently rebought because I really wanted this gimbal again. So to put things into perspective of how much money you can save on buying used online, it's crazy right now. So this gimbal new would be $8.99, and then I got 2 follow focus with it, so it would be even more than that. But I paid $220 for this gimbal, and it was in mint condition when I got it. The girl that I bought it from had used it 5 times. There was still protect on the screen. It came in the box. There's not a scratch on it. So I saved $679 on buying this gimbal used instead of just running out and buying the newest and the latest gimbal. So before you do that, check online. There are golden deals right now on used gimbals. And then keep in mind what content you're shooting, because some gimbals are simply better suited for the job than others are. And this has nothing to do with one gimbal being better than the other. It's simply about picking the right tool for the job. So if I'm shooting a corporate video for a client, I want a gimbal that is more upright, like the RS3 here, which gives me a better shooting position in this upright mode, compared to if I'm shooting a lot of car stuff. I want a gimbal with a back handle so I can easily get those low, smooth shots. But just remember, it's not always the gear. It is the operator on the other side of the lens. So practice, 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 because it actually takes time to become a really good gimbal operator. And if you're struggling with some of these things, I encourage you to go watch this video right here where I'll teach you exactly that.